Hi, everybody. Welcome to Meet the Mailers. I'm Paul Bobnack for Who's Mailing What, and today I'm talking with Mark DeBellis. He's the president of the financial service team and corporate VP for marketing and business development at Westamerica. Before we get started, keep in mind that you can join our conversation by commenting below. Show your support by tapping the like button, and to get notified of when we add new videos to the channel, click on subscribe. Now let's meet today's guest. Welcome, Mark. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. It's great to have an opportunity to share with you and the audience, and hopefully there's a few ideas that they can take away and make successful for themselves.
Oh, well, I have no doubt there's going to be that. So let's get started by talking about your background, how you got involved with direct mail, and also what your present role involves at Westamerica.
Yeah, thanks. Well, truthfully, I'm a marketer from my earliest days. I've loved everything about marketing. I majored in marketing in college and was able to go on for an MBA. And I hadn't really been exposed to direct mail. I was more of a product marketer guy, consumer packaged goods and such. And then I had a wonderful experience. I spent about four and a half years at a large savings and loan back in the late 80s, early 90s. And everything we did that was strategic, I say that because we had data to be able to talk directly to our customers. And that was, for me, really powerful because not only could we target extremely well and use our creative resources to come up with a conversation, but we could actually track and evaluate how people responded, what were the reactions to our materials, how that impacted our branches. So it was a real, for me, an exposure to the direct relationship you get when you use direct mail. Obviously, that was pre-internet and before email and everything else, but I got the taste of the power of information, and so I really was fortunate that I had that early on. And then, as my career progressed, I went to other places, in and out of product-oriented companies, and then joined a marketing services firm, and we were all about direct mail and serving financial customers. So it's been a great foundation. And it's also helped me understand, the consumer even at a greater depth. So I think that's really important as a marketer.
Absolutely. And so, what is your present role involved at Westamerica today?
Yeah, so I have a number of different responsibilities, and one is to manage the financial team. We have a large base of financial clients, so we act as an advertising agency essentially to help them get the most out of their product marketing efforts. So we do a lot of direct mail as part of that. I'll be sharing some examples there. I'm also responsible for general marketing for the company and business development. So I get to work with the financial team. We have an in-house creative team that's part of my group. And I also work with other clients that are looking for solutions for general marketing as well as direct mail. So it's really a wonderful mix of different areas to contribute to. Very.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. And so, more broadly speaking, what are all the different types of services that the company offers to marketers?
Yeah, we're really a very diverse organization today. We have, as I mentioned, direct mail communication services. We've built an organization that's really a one-stop shop. I know that's an overused term, but people like to say that, but we truly do have so many of those attributes under one roof and ready to leverage for our clients. So mentioned the direct mail, we also have a very large and evolved commercial printing operation. So in that group, we do traditional printing assignments, but also a lot of packaging. That's a major area of growth. So we have in-house packaging design and packaging manufacturing. We also have a new what's known as wide format division, which is for your extra large graphics at trade shows and displays and things like that. So we've really evolved to be all things to the marketing community. What's nice about our business model is that everything is right here. So we can design, print, and mail it, or design, print, and build it, and so on. So it's a real convenient, fast turnaround. And we like to believe that, as a company, we control all of the quality processes along the way, so it means a better overall result. So yes, it's been a wonderful experience to help this organization grow and to be as diverse as it is. We continue to add too. One of the things that we hear from our clients is that they want us to make their job easier. How do we do that? So we do our best to produce at a fair price and with the highest quality, but they also want to see other services that add value to their world. So we have a storefront option, which is an electronic portal for them to interact with us for convenience. And sometimes we're handling inventory for them. Sometimes they're designing something right online. So whatever that may be, whatever that may look like, at the end of the day, we're there to serve those customers that are typically in the marketing space. They're working on products on their own side. They're in need of support and services and resources. So we have to make everything we do in line with what their needs are. So we really try to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think that's an expectation of many customers today. So talking more generally about that is what other strengths are there for companies to be vertically integrated like that and to offer customers?
Yeah, well, today I think, especially right now, we're seeing this ramp up of costs everywhere, and so the old model, which was fairly typical years ago, was multiple stops that you would go through to get your project completed, and that was inefficient. So, eliminating any inefficiencies, eliminating multiple markups in the chain of that product, moving from, its origin to its final completion, all of those things matter, and they matter even more today. If we can streamline our process in such a way that we're able to add value not only in turnaround, but also in overall cost, because those have real implications in the marketplace. If you have to wait to respond, or you're losing days or hours by a process that's not reacting quickly enough, that costs money. Costs money for our customers. So we put a high value on that. So we're always looking for ways to be more efficient. I know we might even touch on this, Paul, but I'll share one example of how we as a company respond proactively to the environment that we're all dealing with in today. You probably have heard that there's been a big issue with paper.
Oh, yeah.
And coming out of this pandemic, and it's not only paper, lots of products. We all been impacted by the supply chain challenges. So with paper in particular, and who knew that would happen? Mills were shut down and so on. So what's happened is there's been a real lack of supply. Now, most printing companies had you've heard the term just-in-time inventory. They would have their projects lined up, and the next day the paper companies would deliver the inventory necessary for that job. So they took all the risk and all the responsibility for inventory. Well, that has gone away. That's not happening right now. The paper companies have said, we don't have the supply and to do that. So what we've become, in effect, is a conduit for the paper itself, but not for the inventory and warehousing. So what that means is company like Westamerica, which we've taken a very proactive role, which frankly is very expensive, to actually inventory. We've got nearly $1 million of inventory of paper alone, which we didn't have to do a year ago.
Wow.
And why do we do that? Because if we don't do that, we're not going to be able to meet the needs of our customers when they need it. They don't care about, they're not thinking about the paper inventory, that's not keeping them up at night, but
Right,
it's
exactly.
keeping us up at night. But we take steps like that. So that's a huge investment. It not only, in the paper inventory itself, but the warehousing people. We've added some positions to manage that, which honestly, we didn't have to have that degree of, let's say, focus on those components in the past. So I think, as the audience, looks at this dynamic and begins to try to compare that with their resources. I think if you ask those kinds of questions of your provider, make sure that they have the ability to deliver, because at the end of the day, it's really about that. Is getting that solution to you when you need it, that you can depend on it. Because if you don't get it, it doesn't make you look good internally either.
No,
So
not at all.
you have that to worry about as a manager. So that's a question now to add to those interviews when you start interviewing for a company that can provide these kinds of services. Hey, what's your paper supply chain look like, and how have you controlled some of the stockouts and things that happen?
Exactly. Well, related to that, how have the postage as well, but how have postage and paper increases affected direct mail design, or even like overall strategy?
Yeah, unfortunately I don't think there's been a year, maybe one, that's gone by without some kind of increase in postage, So it is like anything, and it continues to go up in cost. One of the things that we encourage our clients is to be strategic with the use of any marketing resource, because everything is going up in cost. There's nothing that's cheaper. We used to think email was free, until that changed, and you kind of get what you pay for. So we really encourage people to make sure that they're thinking through all the reasons why they're using the tool, because it is more expensive, but it is effective. And to that extent, we help them mining data properly. Who are the most likely respondents to this material, and are they the ones that are going to generate the highest return for you? Because direct mail is very trackable, and we can tell that it works. So it's just making sure that we're not using that tool ineffectively. One of the things that I'll share, I think, which is important just to say, because having been in this part of the business for a long time, I've seen how we've all seen how media has changed. When there was no internet, 25 years ago, whatever, and now there's a lot of digital media. And what happens is, as marketers, we have to be really mindful of all the media channels that are available to us, and we get in the habit of picking what we know and picking maybe what's convenient. And so a lot of the, I'm going to just say, the younger managers that we work with have not had any exposure to direct mail yet. And so it's a bit mysterious. And often think in terms of how digital works and how direct mail might work because of digital. And they're really two different channels. And so I would encourage everybody, who is learning a new media, whether it's a direct mail or radio or TV, but have been sort of brought up on digital, that each of those mediums, and direct mail is its own media too, has uniqueness and important attributes that need to be understood to really leverage everything you can do with it. And so with that, you want to make sure you pick a good partner, because especially as these projects get bigger and more expensive, to your point, Paul, where your postage, is typically more expensive than the project itself. So, you want to make sure that you're working with somebody who knows how to get the most out of each budget dollar. And then, increasingly what's happened, it's in virtually not all cases, but so many cases, we're leveraging digital with direct mail, so that there's a synergy between the two, because digital's ever present. We're always one click away, wherever we are, from some sort of response, whatever that might be.
Exactly.
And so we want to make sure that we're tapping into all of those different avenues. And so when you think about again, leveraging that investment, I always like to say, fish in all holes. If you're not providing multiple ways for people to respond, then you're missing something, because you never know, when someone is going to not want to respond digitally for whatever reason. Maybe they're a more mature consumer, or they just don't feel comfortable putting that information in, on a website. It might just, they'd rather have a response card. So
Right.
I'll share some examples later of the sort of the old tried and true things that are still being used because for that very reason. So give the consumer the choice, but make sure you give them the choice.
Of course.
You don't want to miss the opportunity for them to respond in the method they want to.
Of course. Well, let's talk about financial services marketing. Now, what kind of changes are happening in the industry, and what do companies need to do to keep up with laws or customer demand, consumer demand for more security?
Yeah, well, that's really a big issue. We're all living through a weird time in our existence where information is everywhere, and seemingly there's a lot of ways that you can fall into a trap, of giving away information or people finding your information. So the financial institutions are the ones that we've worked with, and I've worked with them for many years now, and I've seen this change as they've needed to. They're stewards of your data, so they have to be very mindful of how, not only how that data is used, but who gets access to it. So I want to let everybody know that might be watching this as a consumer, when we get data from our financial customers, the data they send us, first of all, has been scrubbed to make sure that only the data that we absolutely positively need is being sent. So that's a responsible relationship, because there's a lot of information out there which with the wrong keystroke or the wrong mindset can be sent to a provider. So you don't want as a provider any more than what you need to complete the project. So we've seen not only that taking place, more awareness on the part of the customer side, to be keeping that data away from only those that need it. And then on our end, as a processor of sorts, processing that data, we've got multiple security procedures in place. We're audited every year on our security practices and procedures. We have a very detailed policy. We have protocols we go through, and there's access limitations, who can go into certain rooms. And so we've tightened down everything that we can to ensure that the data that gets to us is not accessed by any other than, there's only 3 people in our company that actually get access to the data we're talking about.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, so it's very very restricted. And then the other part of that too, and I would, again, if your audience is working with this kind of data, this is probably part of a process that they're going through with each vendor, and I'll talk about that in a second. But we immediately wipe the data after we use it, so there's no reason for us to keep that data around. So we have a policy of wiping that data from our servers. So even if it's just names and addresses, we get rid of it. So we just don't want to be in the habit of collecting things because it doesn't really serve a purpose. Being able to serve a financial institution today does require a lot of approvals and due diligence. So it's not unusual for us when we sign on a new client to go through a process with their department to see all of the things I mentioned and understand what our protocols are. And our commitment to that continues to grow. We're continuing to add different levels of security protocols that are nationally recognized, that type of thing, so that we give our customers confidence. Because the worst thing in the world is to have someone have a data breach. It's
horrible.
It's indescribable. So we just don't want to be anywhere near that. So we take every precaution we can to do that, to avoid that.
Well, that's great to hear. And switching gears a little bit, what are some ways that automotive marketers can use direct mail to build their brand and also build customer relationships?
Yeah, I think what you want to explore, and let's say automotive, we've done some work in the automotive space, and I'll talk through that. But where direct mail sometimes gets disconnected are for those very large durable goods like autos, appliances, furniture, housing, other things. And so the way we've used direct mail with auto customers is to be part of the fulfillment process. So, and that really speaks to our capabilities. With I mentioned our storefront, and so what can be done in there is we can receive lists, that are updated and uploaded on a regular basis that go to our fulfillment department, and we can send out materials. So that's part of our services. Specifically, I can't show you the automotive project we did, but I'll give you a kind of a general idea. So imagine you were on the list for a high-end new model that's coming out, and so when that kind of piece, and this is actually not it, but it's just an example of a high-quality coffee table type, piece.
Oh, wow.
That got sent out to each of these potential buyers, and so, like we were talking earlier, this is actually a annual report we did for one of our financial clients. But that kind of the spirit of that. So, a high quality, more expensive piece that would be then sent out. And, we know that piece is going to get opened. It's not, it's not a little postcard. Thank you for, your interest. It's an experience that you're providing for that individual. And that's the other side of this whole effort in direct mail. You have to also be remembering what's the experience going to be when that consumer interacts with your information. We have to get past creating it, because that's part of it, part of the journey. But the other side is, how are they going to feel when they get it?
Right.
And if they feel it, if they feel what you've communicated, when they open that, and they'll respond. They may not buy right now, but they will be impacted. And so that's part of the direct mail experience. So we want to think of it not just as a set of printed materials, but the experience that they're going to go through.
Right. I think that's a really huge point, because that's something that you get with printed materials, with inks and papers and finishes and embellishments. You get that texture, that tactile quality. And if you're reaching out to like a smaller segment of an audience that you may have in the past, but you're really targeting them with that high quality direct mail piece, it can have really great ROI. So you don't need to mail in gigantic numbers like you did in the past, and find a smaller response rate acceptable and just shrug your shoulders and go on.
Yeah, I want to share something with you real quick that kind of goes along those lines. And this was an internal piece that we did, but I think your viewers would find this very fun. So the focus here was on business development. And so this piece went out like this with the person's name on it. What does this look like to you?
It kind of looks like I'm not really sure what that is.
It's a pizza delivery box. The guy comes in with that.
Oh, yeah, all right. Okay.
So what we did was we turned our product offerings and built it around the whole concept of the pizza restaurant. And then we sent out the pizza box. And in the pizza box was some collateral material, a brochure, like a menu, and a die-cut pizza.
Oh, wow.
With some cheese and peppers in it. But what's fun too about this is that you can actually buy pizza cologne. So we sprayed each one. We sprayed each one before we shipped it. And so this was a hoot. And I'm going to tell you, everybody's, that's so, nobody did not remember receiving that.
No, that's really unique. I don't think I've ever seen or heard of anything like that before.
And that goes back to what we were talking about. What's the experience going to be when somebody gets that in their hand? I mean, clearly you can't do that with every campaign, but the point is, be creative in how you engage the recipient, and make it as fun yet credible, as you can. You don't want to come off as just too irreverent or too crazy. But there's not a person that received that didn't remember getting it.
Right, or clever for the sake of being clever.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Everybody can relate to the local pizza restaurant and the menu they have. And
if you can't, then I don't know what to say after that.
Yeah, maybe we don't want to work with you then.
Right. Well, well, does that kind of drive for creating experience? How does that apply to nonprofits? And basically, how can nonprofits best use their direct mail to engage contributors or members?
Yeah. It's a great question, and we are fortunate that we work with a number of nonprofits, some very large ones that are national in scope, and then some very local ones. And in fact, the thing about nonprofit mailing that you're always mindful of is because of the nature of their business and their mission, they always have to be asking for donation. It's just part of the protocol, and it's not unexpected because typically the smaller nonprofits, they live and die by those donations. Larger ones get grants and things, but the donation is their lifeblood. So it's really like their order. They're not selling you a product per se. They're explaining a service and asking you to be part of that mission, essentially. So when we work with our nonprofits, and this is just a little example, it's fairly typical. This is a local charity. We work with Catholic Charities in Orange.
Okay.
And every letter that goes out, and they typically mail, it's a Catholic organization, so they're mailing around the holidays, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving. And there's always, that ask right there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So for us, what we try to do is help them create the best combination of offers or options for the recipient. So if somebody, if you genericize that as a nonprofit, and let's say you make every coupon, 10, 25, 50, and 100, let's say. Well, if the guy last year gave you 500, you're not giving him the option of putting 500 in again. He might just drop down to 100. So we try to encourage them to let's look at what history has told us and apply the right options for the right person. So somebody might be, that's all they can offer or give at the $25 level, and others can add a couple zeros to it. So that's one of the strategic things when you think about nonprofits. You want to help them because that helps them maximize the investment, because it's costs the group something to send this out. They get some breaks, as with postage, so fortunately, but it's still inexpensive, and we want to make sure that it's designed well. That's another thing I think that sometimes gets lost a little bit in the nonprofit world, in that there's a belief sometimes that if it looks like it's nicely designed, that it is expensive. And we are in a world today where everything's in color, 4K TV, and so on. And so we just have to meet people where they are, make sure that we have a pleasant experience when they're interacting with your materials. It's easy to read. It's accomplishing what you want it to accomplish as far as the conversation goes.
Right.
And so I would, urge people to just be mindful of that tendency to want to go on the cheap, and just do an adequate job at least. And one of our other nonprofits, actually kind of on the opposite end of the scale, is Wyland. Wyland the artist, if you know Wyland, he's the artist that focuses on ocean and sea, and we work with his foundation. So it's not over the top, but it's nice quality, and he has his galleries, and he has his events, and all the proceeds that he generates go to his Save the Ocean initiative. And we've been a long time partner with him. I'm very happy about what he does. We're in Southern California, and his office is just 15, 20 minutes away from us. So it's been a wonderful relationship. But we're continuing to add more nonprofit customers. They desperately need to have a voice and to get out in front of these potential donors. And because there's a lot of good work being done in the nonprofit space, and that's their lifeblood, honestly, is really it's direct mail,
Yeah,
some events, and some grants
right,
for the
right.
most part.
Well, like you said at the beginning of your remarks about how for a lot of large organizations, they have alternative ways of raising money. They have enough channels coming in that they can adjust more easily. But for a lot of smaller nonprofits, direct mail really is their lifeblood.
Yeah, it really is. And, it's often, I think we can go back to what we talked about earlier as far as media, media channels. Every channel that the communication professional has access to today has a cost and a benefit, from radio, TV, email, other digital tools, and direct mail. And I would encourage everyone to look at each channel and do their best to evaluate the return that you're receiving from each channel, because you've got to use them all effectively. And I think there's been a huge reliance on digital for a lot of reasons. It's newest, it's ubiquitous, everywhere and always on. So it's natural, and it has captured probably half of the media, budgets or more. But direct mail does provide different benefits. So just keep that in mind as you start exploring those things.
Right, and I think for nonprofits as well, there's the combination of words and images when you have an appeal, whether it's an acquisition appeal or a capital campaign or something like that. The emotional impact is a lot greater when you pair it with images and people have that physical mail piece in their hands, and it's more powerful than like one of 5,000 credit card offers you might get in a month.
Well, and to that point, what we see a lot of, and even more of today, is the integration of digital with direct mail. So a number of campaigns that we do now might include a QR code. So
yeah, love it.
Here's one with a major landscaping company, and we produce their direct mailer. And so this is actually an interesting piece in and of itself, because it does have the QR code, so you can go onto the website, directly see what they've done. But notice how this is a bit of older technology. This is a business reply card.
Okay, right.
So back to what we were talking about, right? Let's give everybody options to respond. So some might think, I'll just put the QR code in there, take them to a contact page, you can fill it out and you're done. But for them, and they do a lot of direct mail, and we've been a long time provider to them, and they very good at tracking and knowing what works. So they found that, hey, if we get back X number of those response cards, and those cards today can be pre-printed with the information from that recipient. So we can produce that, in line. So it's Paul and his address, probably doesn't have your phone number in there, or your email, but it's one step that's been completed. And then, that's a lot easier just ripping that off and dropping it in the mail, maybe, than clicking, filling something out, etc.
Right.
So,
I mean, that's the whole thing, is meeting your audience in where they want to be met.
Yep. Yeah. So the QR code has been it's interesting, as you know, because it's not new. It's probably showed up 10 years ago, maybe.
Oh, well, at least that, yeah.
And then it just sat there, and we talked about all these things that you could do with it, but it just sat there until the pandemic.
Right.
And then the consumer said, I want to be able to order something at this restaurant. I need to have a QR code scanner, and I need to pull a menu up on my phone. So now it's everywhere.
Right.
And it's even on TV. So it's been a great tool for anybody in the marketing space now, because we can bring things to life with it. We can go from the 2D to the 3D video, all the possibilities. So it's really added another dimension.
Well, I love it because it's trackable, which is great for people like us, because we can see those responses, and but also that it is so functional. A lot of the marketers now understand that if you're going to have people scan a QR code, you can't just go to their website, which is their standard website. Great, a lot of people do that. That's fine, but when you had smartphones that weren't that smart or weren't didn't have like a responsive design for your site, the experience, going back to your word, is a pretty bad experience.
Yeah.
So they've learned. Everybody's really learned from that, and that's what it's about. It's creating that experience.
Well, we're seeing it used in lots of different places. For instance, with our financial clients, one of the things that we do is, we do a lot of these type of letters that, you're pre-approved, and you're not unfamiliar with these, but they're even using the QR code to take the consumer from the letter and write to a loan activation page, which, is one less step now that has to be completed. So talk about convenience, the ability to see an offer, click on that QR code, and actually accept it in a secured environment. So those are the kinds of things that are also taking place, in that industry with the use of a QR code. So, it can launch a video.
Powerful.
Yeah. And I'm sure there'll be more tools we haven't thought of, but
they're coming.
Yeah.
They're coming. Yeah, that's pretty cool though. I like that. So what would you say is like the best value proposition for direct mail today? Why does it still work so well?
Yeah. Well, I would say something before I answer that question. I would ask that when someone considers direct mail, to ask themselves, what should that experience be? Here's what happens sometimes. Someone might say, hey, I want to do a postcard. Because postcards, honestly, are probably the least expensive direct mail tool. And they can be effective. There's no question about that. We've got, we do a lot of postcards. But I think what happens sometimes is we let the budget get in the way of the process. So we say, well, I can afford a postcard, so I'm going to do a postcard. And I would say, if you can't do anything else, then do the postcard. But I would start with the why and the what. Why are we going to do direct mail? What are we trying to accomplish? What's the right tool? Because, we can start with a simple postcard, something like this, let's say, two-sided, or we could use a mailer that might be a deeper experience where it opens and we have more information that may be necessary to explain something, or we could have a letter that is a different experience. So yes, it does kind of ratchet up when it comes to the budget, but again, let's make sure we're sending it to the right people, getting the highest possible response, and making sure we're doing the product or the opportunity justice. And so that's where I kind of leave that. I think each one of these options becomes relevant if it's in the right context.
I completely agree with that. So what trends do you see unfolding in direct mail for the rest of the year and into 2023?
Well, there's the postage is, of course, something we talked about. I think we just had an increase. So, and the fortunate thing about that, by the way, is that they don't tend to penalize the business mailer as much as they do the consumer. So that actually could be a good thing when you think about it, because the price of the first class stamp is becoming more expensive, but the incremental cost of the business reply or the business class of mail is not as great, it seemed to me. So there's an advantage, actually, I guess, in that it's not going up as much. But so I would say that the paper issue, be comfortable being flexible, work with your provider to think about, options. And there's always that challenge or tendency maybe that somebody gets caught up with a particular type of paper or a stock or whatever it might be. And I would encourage you as a marketer to be flexible and to be open to options. So while there might be a particular stock that you really like because it has these features or looks like it has a texture, whatever it might be, maybe that can be duplicated, through the printing process. So it's simulated, or because you don't want the paper inventory problem to get in the way of your program. No. And so, when we talk about if you're waiting for something, to execute something, you've lost time. You're not going to get those sales dollars back. I always kind of remind people of time, is a cost. And so we want to be timely and effective getting there with the right thing. So choose somebody that has resource, like, I mentioned what we're doing. There's others probably doing something similar. And I would say those that are, committed are doing something like that because they have to. And you want to know that when it comes time to make that happen, they can make it happen. So that's certainly a trend to be, hopefully it goes away soon. We're being told sometime early this year, but nothing's seemingly, ever as we hope it would be these days. It's just been very unique time for us. So anyway, so be mindful of that. Be aware of your security precautions, and if you're getting data from your customers and you don't have a practice or process in place to really protect it, then that's going to come back to you. There are more and more that train isn't slowing down. The security precautions are becoming greater and greater. In fact, and it's not because of necessarily people like us that are mailing information or using it for marketing purposes. It's for our customers that are capturing this data.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're capturing that data, warehousing that data, then using that data. So somewhere, we're going to have to resolve that. What's the right amount of data, and what do you really need, and what data do you want to have, and at what cost? What risk? So every decision has somewhat of a counterbalancing risk component to it. And I'd say data is becoming that. And certainly we're in California, and we have new laws that are coming that are increasingly penalizing people that capture data. So that's something to keep your eyes on. I think those are the key things. The number of printers is not growing. We have seen in the last 3 or 4 years in our general community probably a reduction of 4 or 5%. Some of the larger competitors that we have closed. So find one that you like, treat them well, work together closely, and you'll both have a synergistic experience. It's an important part of the commerce today, and I think just treating your supplier with respect and communication is so important. I think you'll find that you build a good relationship by communicating. They can bring a lot of value to you and to your program, and save you money in the long run.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like a great note to end things on today. How can people find out more about Westamerica for consultation or a possible partnership?
Yeah, well, our website's www.mywestamerica.com. My email is first name Mark DeBellis, last name DeBellis @mywestamerica. Our general email address is mail@mywestamerica. So any of those options, you can get to us. Be happy to talk to you about any of your challenges and how we might be able to help you.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you again for Mark for being here today, and thank all of you out there for joining us today. And remember that you can join our conversation by commenting below. You can show your support by tapping the like button and click on subscribe to be notified of new videos as they're added to our channel. If you are interested in being featured in a future Meet the Mailers, I'd love to hear from you. My contact info can be found in the paragraph below by tapping Show More. Thanks for watching Meet the Mailers, and see you next time.